Ambassador, thank you for taking the time.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Listen, I was listening to the U.S. president over the weekend. He was on the red carpet for the Kennedy Center honors. And while on the red carpet, Donald Trump, was asked about Canada. And in describing Canada, he says he has a great relationship with Canada. He has a great relationship with the Prime Minister. So if that is how the U.S. president feels, why do you think we've not been able to make progress on the trade front?
You got to get to a deal. Okay, you got to get to agreement. There's two sides to this. Okay, I think many of us believe on both sides of the negotiation table that we had a great meeting earlier this year between the president and the prime minister, but most importantly on October 7th, we had the press scrum come in, which everybody watches when the president and the prime minister meet. They fire questions at the president. Every once in a while, the prime minister is brought in because it's usually a far-ranging discussion with the media. On October 7th, we did that. Then we had a meeting with all of us in the Oval Office. Everybody left except for the Prime Minister and for the President. They had a private conversation for about 30 minutes, and then they joined the rest of us for lunch. And then the president asked the prime minister to talk about some of the things that the two of them had talked about oil and uranium, steel, aluminum, and the president felt very, very positive. Many of the members of the team voiced their support for what the prime minister was talking about. And, when lunch was done, it was kind of like, the prime minister looked at his team and said, not literally the exact words, but okay, make this happen. And the president looked at his team and make it happen. And so everybody was upbeat, moving forward. Then we got to everybody seemed to think we were very, very close to making an announcement and a deal. And for some unforeseen and unpredicted activities, boom, it blows up.
Okay, so unforeseen activities. What are you referencing there?
Well, we're representing Canadian government ads, specifically targeting the President of the United States, specifically targeting his policies, using the words of a former Republican president that the Ronald Reagan Association, they're the keeper of the legacy of Ronald Reagan, said this ad misrepresents the comments that Ronald Reagan made about tariffs at that time. And it's unprecedented. I mean, America has never experienced a foreign government coming into America, targeting our president, his policies, during an election season, as negotiations were just about being finalized, and criticizing it. It's never happened.
So how close was that deal to being achieved?
Well, I mean, I think you don't have a deal until everything's settled, right? But I think, again, people on both sides, and I think there was also an article in the last couple of days from some folks in the steel industry who referenced where they thought the negotiations were as it was coming to a close, which seemed to indicate that it was steel was very close. And I think out of the four initial things that were being debated, steel might have been the hardest. So was it this? Was it that? It was more like something like this than, oh no, we're still miles apart, and it's going to take another 6 or 8 weeks to resolve it. I think most people were expecting, who were involved, the real possibility that we would have signed an agreement before America's Thanksgiving.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to go back a little bit because I think there's a bit of a disconnect with the Canadians' understanding to the reaction to that ad. Because
I know there is. I've experienced it firsthand.
So why does I don't know if it's the White House, Donald Trump, or Americans in general took such offense to that ad?
It's never happened before. Foreign governments do not come into the United States of America and run political ads during our election campaign season. If they want to do that, they are, as we've said, they are setting precedent. No one has ever tried this before.
And
it's not, people have said, Pete, why are you upset? It's kind of like, Think about it, okay? The president mentions an election in Canada, and I think there have been reports that says Canadians weren't happy about that, okay? This is taking a comment by a political person, whether it's the president or the prime minister, but then the government making a conscious decision to take taxpayer money, significant, $75 million, and say, we're going to run on the World Series, we're going to run it on Fox News, we're going to run it on NFL Sunday football, and the intent is to influence it and divide the Republican Party, a specific political objective.
There is also the distinction, though. That was a provincial ad. That was sponsored by the government of Ontario, not the government of Canada. The level at which is the United States is engaging in these discussions.
Yeah, it was. We know that. Okay.
But no distinction.
You know, when I was in Congress, and you'd like to think that everybody that is in your congressional district knows you, in America, it is, in my congressional district, and it's this way for every congressional district, you know, about 50% of our constituents could not name who their congressperson was. They don't live and breathe politics each and every day like those of us who are involved in that business. Americans saw an ad that at the bottom of it says, paid for by maybe the province of Ontario or whatever, but it's very clear. This is an ad run by, coming from a government institution in Canada.
So who had such a strong reaction to this ad? Was it the staff at the White House? Was it the president himself? Who reacted badly to it?
I think the Canadians actually did a pretty good job. They got everybody mad, including the president of the United States.
Did he say anything to you about the ad?
I talked with the president about the ad, yes.
And
I talked to him. I think the ad started running on Thursday night. I had a discussion with the president on Saturday afternoon.
So he reached out to you about this ad?
I actually, I had a reason that I needed to communicate to the president. I texted the president, and he was in Asia, so we were about 12, 13 hours different in terms of time zones. I expected I might just receive a text, maybe a number of hours later. 15 minutes after I texted the president, my phone rang, and it's like, oh, hi, Mr. President, how are you? And then we had a discussion.
At the end of the day, the Ontario government was fighting for its people and its workers. Is there any leeway for that motivation?
No, not. I think people in the Canadian government were well aware that running, again, don't just discard. You're getting actively involved in campaign activities in the United States of America. As I said, we're in the middle of an election campaign. We're in the middle of waiting for a Supreme Court decision to make a decision on tariffs. I expect that whoever advertises that they're fighting for their interest. Okay, I mean, if I've run ads. Yes, if I spend $1 million on TV in my congressional race, yeah, I think I'm advocating for Pete Hoekstra and for people to vote for Pete Hoekstra. I'm assuming that the Ontario government is advocating, if they're spending Ontario taxpayer dollars, I'm assuming that they're going to be advocating for the interest of what they perceive to be the interest of their citizens. I don't know, but again, why does Ontario get a pass on this? If you open up, which Ontario has now done, the Pandora's box of the U.S. welcoming foreign governments to come into our election campaign. Okay, are we saying for 2026, hey, China, come on in. We've got congressional elections, control of the Senate and control of the House. We welcome foreign governments to come in and do political advertising in the United States of America during our election season. You can see that because we welcomed Ontario to come in and, to do that in 2025. No, that's not the message that America is sending out. American elections, they're about Americans making decisions influenced by campaign dollars that are generated under our legal system, for advocating on behalf of Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Green Party, whatever party. But historically, we have not put into that list foreign governments.
So how does this country work back from that then? How is it an apology from Doug Ford? Is it?
I think the Prime Minister has been, the President and the Prime Minister met a few days ago at the FIFA draw. They've had, from my understanding, they've had other discussions via text and maybe some phone calls and those kinds of things. We're working back. I think America and Canada, we recognize we need an agreement. Again, my mandate here in Canada is do everything that you can to help promote prosperity. And we believe that when we have prosperity in America, there will be prosperity in Canada. Do everything that you can to promote the strong military relationship that we've had for years. My parents were liberated by Canadian troops in the Netherlands, so that goes way back in our family on a personal basis. So do that, and then also to talk about law enforcement and the fentanyl crisis and those types of things. That's what we're working on, and we recognize that working in all three of those areas, the best way for America to move forward is to have a strong partnership with our friend to the north, Canada.
Okay. I was in the White House both times that the Prime Minister was there in the Oval Office, and I heard the President say that, America does not want things that it already does on its own, for example, automobiles. Mm-hmm. But then he goes on to say that he believes Canadians will be happy with the deal when the deal is reached with whatever comes out. So what does the President envision as being a mutually beneficial deal between Canada and the United States?
I think and you'll also remember on autos, the President said, I want America to make autos and I don't know the exact words, but America to make autos and to make money making autos. And then he said, and I want Canada to do the same. So I envision an agreement that allows and permits and facilitates the entree of Canadian-produced automobiles and automobile parts into the United States. There may be caps, there may be quotas, and there may be probably be some level of tariffs, because that's what we're doing with every country in the world is getting, it falls under this regime of tariffs and those types of things. And then you just look to the future, okay? The President talks about energy dominance, not of America, of North America. Think of what we could do together to bring and make sure that North America is energy dominant. I think the President and I think the Prime Minister has talked about the same thing. One death of a Canadian or an American to fentanyl is one too many. So think about the cooperation and the lives that we can save, working together on fighting cartels, the importation of precursor materials that allow the production of these deadly materials, working together to protect the Arctic, to protect the North American continent, like we've done for years with NORAD. We've got, we're not trying this stuff for the first. These are things that we can move forward on. I met with some mayors this week from Canada. It was awesome, because what were they talking about? They all, I guess there's an organization that has 200 communities in Canada and 200 communities in the U.S. who live on one of our most valuable commodities, fresh water. And they're in there and they're saying, and what we all know is that fresh water is the oil in 20 years. It'll be as magical, powerful, and important in 20 years as what oil is today, because industries need it, we need it, people need it, ag needs it, and all of these kinds of things. And these mayors were talking about, we want to work with you guys, okay? Because as that happens, there will be threats to fresh water. And when I was in Congress, we worked on a whole bunch of issues together with Canada to protect the quality and improve the quality of that freshwater asset that we share.
But to get there will have to be an acceptance on Canada's part that the auto industry will never be what it once was here?
Didn't say that. The president didn't say that.
But if you're talking quotas, you're putting a limitation on what is available here.
Well, right now we're importing, depending on the year, we import somewhere between 200,000 and 400,000 more cars from Canada than what Canada buys from the United States. Okay? President didn't say scale that back or whatever, but what the president wants production in the United States, and Canada's not our biggest issue on autos, okay? But I think, does it mean that it's unlikely that Canada's going to be producing 600,000 or 1 million cars more per year that are exported to the United States than what they import from the United States? Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment. But again, it's a negotiation. And so, we may do one thing on autos, there may do something else on water, we may do something on energy, and it's the negotiators who actually put together the balance of, okay, hey, here's what it is to make sure that we get to a win-win. Because from our perspective, having a prosperous, a strong, and a safe Canada is much better than the alternative. These, people talk, well, you're going to drive us into the ground and all. That's not what we want. We want North America to be a strong neighborhood, a prosperous neighborhood. We've done that. We've demonstrated that for decades, and that continues to be the exact same direction that we want to move forward in. And there is, as we go through the negotiations on USMCA, it's great that we're doing it, because there are so many different opportunities out there that we didn't anticipate 7 years ago that provide huge opportunities for us to work together and to grow the relationship. AI, energy, water, as I talked about, rather than, we've got all these problems and, we got to fix this and fix that or take care of that. This is an opportunity to structure that agreement to bring prosperity to Canada and America for the next 6 years, for the next 10 years.
I have two quick questions to ask you because I'm losing time here, but
okay.
I have a lot more. But very quickly, though,
we'll come back.
Any renegotiation, I would love that. Any renegotiation will involve tariffs, though. This idea of a tariff-free deal, as we had under NAFTA, as we had under the USMCA first version, that's now gone.
The president, I think, has made it clear, and his team have made it clear there will be tariffs. And again, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Okay, because what we've seen and I've never embraced the term free trade. Okay, it doesn't exist and what we've seen a tremendous development on a global basis is that as we've entered in free trade agreements, what do we see a rise of? Non-tariff trade barriers. Okay, and so it's kind of like what trade has always been about negotiated trade agreements, and that's exactly what this will be. It will be another negotiated trade agreement.
Okay. Now, the review begins next year. There's already been work.
Started.
Yes,
Yep.
I know the work has already begun, but in terms of the three amigos sitting down and talking about it, that's really more next year, to my understanding.
Yep.
Is there any hope of any type of sectoral relief, as there was in October, evolving before this deal is renegotiated?
I think that having an interim agreement on the sectoral things would be a very positive thing for Canada and the United States. And I'm hopeful. I'm talking to the Prime Minister, his team, on a regular basis in terms of what my perspective is and how we can get this thing moving forward again. I'm also talking to the U.S. team. What needs to happen to get that to go? I think it would be helpful. These things are critical. If we would have fixed steel and aluminum, as we were so close to doing, guess what industry that would have impacted tremendously? Autos. There's a lot of steel and there's a lot of aluminum in automobiles, and we would have partially started to address some of the issues that we have with autos, but we weren't provided the opportunity.
You talked about a strong North America and a prosperous Canada, but in my mind, that raises a question about the policy that came out last week from the United States regarding security, national security for the United States, because in that policy there is a line that reads that the United States must be preeminent. So where does Canada fit in that? If there is the preeminence of the United States, does that necessarily relegate Canada to a secondary role?
Well, unless Canada wants to, Canada is not going to be I think it would be difficult for Canada to become the preeminent military power and economic power in the world. Okay? I think what this says is we want America and our close allies, and we have no closer economic ally or a military ally than Canada. And so for us to achieve our objective in terms of being preeminent, I think what you've seen and what we've demonstrated over the last number of decades is that happens when we have a great relationship with Canada on those issues. And then it's Canada's responsibility to say, yeah, we see that same future going forward. I mean, give you an example. Canadian defense contractors, okay, America preeminence, okay, Canadian defense contractors, when they bid on American defense projects, they are categorized and they bid as American contractors, American suppliers. So a company in Toronto who builds parts for our Defense Department, when they bid for that contract, they're allowed to bid because when they send in the bid, it's as if it came in from a company in Detroit. Okay? That's how close this relationship is.
So when you use the word preeminence, that does not necessarily put Canada into a vassal state position?
No, take a look at what we have been doing, okay? Canada has been treated, there is no other country in the world where their companies can compete for, those types of U.S. government projects and come in and say, we're competing as an American company. As a matter of fact, most of those companies are absolutely prohibited, okay, from competing because on a lot of those projects, they're identified as the companies who are bidding or the products that we're purchasing have to be identified as being made in America. So the defense stuff that you're sending to the U.S. is identified as being made in America to allow them to be sold to the United States government. We look forward to reciprocity.
Okay. Listen, as I said, quickly running out of time, but I do want to ask you because it has been a very tumultuous first few months of your tenure here in Canada. What message do you want Canadian leaders to take away? Because the negotiations are not yet done. Obviously, an ad from Ontario has became an issue south of the border. So what message do you want Canadian leaders to hear?
The same message that we've been delivering for the 8 months that I've been here, and I think the American government and previous ambassadors have been delivering for years. Number one, we're open for business, but we want a booming business and economic relationship between the U.S. and Canada. I think 50% of the foreign direct investment coming into Canada comes from the United States of America. Canada is a great investor. I think they're the second largest foreign direct investor in the United States. So that tells us we are open for business. Canada's open for business, and one of our best trading partners, investment partners, is our neighbor. That message continues. We think that from a military standpoint, it's been a great NORAD has been around for decades and has helped secure North America from the threats that we faced. And we have new threats. We've got to protect the Arctic. We've got to protect against China. We'd really like to do that with Canada and use NORAD as the model for success. Maybe the third thing is in Fahrenheit, I think it's 80 degrees in Florida today. And it's probably a lot warmer in Phoenix than it is here. The Canadians are welcome. We would love, for those of you who have decided not to come to the United States or are considering it, we'd love to have you come or come back.
Okay. Ambassador, I appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Great. Thank you. Great to be with you.
And you.